Hi, I'm Alan Arkatov with USC's Rossier School of Education, and this is a little unusual. Normally, Deborah and Michael don't have folks to intro stuff, but I thought Julie and this panel incredibly important because there's so much noise out there these days. Some of the info is fake, some of it is not relevant, and some of it is not meaningful, and I'm not just talking about what's going on in Washington. I'm talking about ed tech and the content space from the perspective of the real users. I like to tell people that we really don't have an education problem these days, we have a communications problem. Making sure that people are able to cut through the clutter of school districts, of politics, of ideology, and be able to scale and make sustainable what's relevant and working in education. That's why USC's Rossier School of Education was proud to announce our partnership with Julie and Project Tomorrow to give them added expertise and be able to pump up the volume for their data. By context, Julie has a proud history, goes back to NetDay, which was the previous organization which morphed into back in almost 20 plus years ago. It was created by Julie back in, Speak Up was created in 2003 because she saw that decisions about ed tech were being made without a clear understanding of what students, parents, and educators really needed and wanted. And Speak Up provides a cost-effective and easy implementable way to elevate the quality of those decisions by infusing the views and values of key stakeholders. And with so many folks running around here today, like saying that they know what's going on in education, and these folks here in front of you really do, I think it's really important to actually come back to the data and what we know is working with the students, with the teachers, with the parents, with the communities. Julie's put together, it's now on 14 years of collecting this data. And again, when you think about that, more than 5 million folks, so they've got the longitudinal data, they can see where the trend lines are. 500,000 or so folks a year, and huge for an academic like me when we see that. That's one of the reasons we were so excited. 400,000 plus students, but community members, teachers, parents, administrators, really getting the cross-section. And the resulting data is tagged belonging to the district, so the districts use it, break it down by community type, Title I statistics, size of district, and the districts participate each year in return for getting this data and using it. So Speak Up has been created as a national movement to recognize the importance of listening to stakeholders about education issues. And I think you'll hear from Julie and the panel of experts that the use of this data is so critical and is transforming how we approach teaching and learning. So Julie?
Thank you, Alan. It's great to have you here. And it's wonderful to have all of you here today. We're going to be talking about a new phenomenon called what we're calling the Chalkboard Dilemma, and giving you some new research on and willingness to adopt digital tools for learning. So we're going to get into that by sharing some of the research data that, as Alan mentioned, Speak Up has collected over the last couple of years, particularly from teachers, but also from students and administrators, parents, and community members as well. And then we also have a wonderful pleasure, or I have the wonderful pleasure, of having two of my favorite people handpicked for this to give us that real-world perspective outside of the data side of it. So Jessie Woolley-Wilson is here with us. She is the president and CEO and chair of the board of DreamBox Learning. And DreamBox Learning has been a long-standing partner and supporter and friend and mentor to Project Tomorrow and to Speak Up and to myself. And so it's wonderful to have Jessie here. Welcome, Jessie.
Happy to be here.
I also have with me another good friend, Ann Linson, who is the superintendent of East Noble School Corporation in Indiana. Ann, it's good to have you here. Ann and I have done this gig before in the past. Ann's district has participated district-wide in the Speak Up research for the past 5 years, but actually the very beginnings of the district's participation go all the way back to 2009. So Jessie's going to give us kind of a corporate perspective on the data that I'm sharing, and then Ann's going to give us the school district perspective. So I love this conversation. I can't wait to get into it.
Eventually, those perspectives will be one.
Well, they will be the same. So whether it's here at the summit or at other education technology conferences you go to, you may have seen a picture that's similar to this. People are quite fond of putting up a picture from the past. And either folks will put up a picture of a schoolroom, and this is actually from 1963, and they'll say, today's classroom doesn't look anything like this, or today's classroom looks exactly like this. Doesn't appear to be any sort of middle ground. I'm actually working right now with a school district in Southern California that's going through a strategic plan. And the superintendent put up a similar picture and had her teachers respond. Now, her teachers responded in a way that said, that doesn't look like my classroom at all. My classroom looks more like this. And so the key part of that is that it does not look like my classroom. So sure, we can look at this and we can say, okay, that may not look like that classroom from 1963. The desks are set up differently. There's technology on the desks. The teacher's using some type of projection device. There's still a kid that's not paying attention. That's probably a universal thing. But the real reality is that we're talking about two different things. We're talking about external indicators where we're maybe seeing change, but there's also something else going on underneath the surface. And what we're going to be talking today about is both the external factors that are collected by the Speak Up data. We look at those all the time. But even more importantly, where do we see evidence of systemic change in teacher practice, change in the attitudes about using technology, change in the way that we're thinking about education reform. It's a little bit like this quote from Suzanne Collins that you may be familiar with as the author of The Hunger Games. Knowing it and seeing it are two different things. This is what we see every day in school districts all across the country. In many cases, our educators think they're seeing certain things, but whether we know what we're seeing or not may be a totally different story. It's also a little bit like this image. So some of us may look at this image and see a woman in kind of a swishy skirt, maybe it's a fur coat, maybe there's leaves. Some folks may see a face. It looks like a very strong patrician face with deep set eyes, a strong nose, high forehead. Some of us may see both. Some of us may see neither. This is the state of where we are with the transformation of education using digital tools. We're all looking at this through slightly different lenses, such as the teachers in this school district that I'm talking about that say that their classroom doesn't look like the past. And we're maybe not all seeing the same things. This is where the Speak Up research that Project Tomorrow has been doing for the past 14 years can help get through all of that noise that Alan mentioned. Because we not only look at the external indicators, what are teachers doing, what are students doing, what are parents doing, we also look at attitudes and aspirations. And we triangulate all three of those to come up with some interesting findings about the state of education technology. So we're going to look today at both external factors as well as systemic change factors. And we're going to start right off with this one. So we asked teachers, so how are you using technology to help you with professional tasks in your classroom? And we see some really interesting things. 2/3 of teachers across the country, this is a sampling size of 38,000 teachers, by the way, told us that they are watching videos or using videos in the classroom. They're texting with their colleagues. They're relying more upon cloud applications than ever before. However, we see a much fewer amount or lesser amount, less than 1/3, say they're doing these type of things, whether it's facilitating a class blog or some way for students to have ongoing discussion about what they're learning, using online curriculum with their students, creating investigations for their students, or even from a personal standpoint, engaging in online professional development. Now, this idea of more and more devices in the classroom is also very evident, and we have a lot of evidence that points to the fact that students and teachers have more access to tablets, to laptops, to Chromebooks, as many of us have been talking about. And yet the conversation about impact is still focused in on engagement. So you see here 3/4 of the teachers say, yes, these devices engage students, but only a much smaller amount, you can see less than 1/3, say it's improving the quality of student work. Now, engagement's important. We're not going to minimize engagement. But for too many school districts, the idea of a return on investment from the investment they've been making to rely upon just engagement is not sufficient. We're really looking for more tangible outcomes. It goes on when we start talking about data usage by teachers as well. So teachers tell us that yes, they are using the data, in many cases derived from different types of digital tools, to communicate with parents, to collaborate with colleagues. A far fewer amount are really talking about changing their instructional practice, using that data to identify students that need additional help or need advanced work, identifying promising practices that they're using in the classroom that should be replicated and should be sustained. So again, we have this disconnect between what we're seeing externally and what's really happening systematically. This also goes to valuation. So we ask administrators and teachers, how important is the use of technology to support students' future success? Now, everyone says it's important. We could poll the audience here. Everyone says it's important. But let's get underneath the hood on this a little bit. When we actually look at the level of intensity between teachers and administrators, again, we see a disconnect. Administrators are much more likely, you can see over 60% of principals, 71% of district administrators, to say it's extremely important, yet only a much smaller percentage of our teachers, under a majority of our teachers, say it's extremely important. This valuation conundrum drives activities. We always, in our data from the very beginning, have seen a relationship between what do teachers, what do principals, what do superintendents, what do parents, what do students value, and how does that drive their activity. And so we're going to play a little game here, folks, with you on this first day afternoon. So on the left-hand side, you see three percentages, 48%, 14%, and 6%. And on the other side, you see three levels of frequency: weekly, daily, and rarely. So how frequently do you think teachers are assigning homework that requires internet access outside of school? These are not lined up appropriately. This is a little bit like The Price is Right, and you've got an opportunity to win a car, okay? Not really. What number do you think is the weekly percentage? 48%, 14%, or 6%? Again, this is 38,000 teachers across the country. What do you think they said? 14? 6? Okay. What do you think that daily number is? 6. And the rarely number? 48%. Smart group we have here at the summit. In fact, that is from 38,000 teachers, as I mentioned. 48% rarely or never assign any type of internet-based homework that students have to do outside of school. Only 6% said it was daily. Now, there is some fluctuation in that number. When we pull out just high school teachers, that daily number jumps all the way to 9%. So we're still seeing kind of an interesting dichotomy there. We took this question one step further and we asked school principals, how frequently do you think your teachers are assigning internet-based homework? And again, we see a difference here. Either principals are much more bullish on this or they have a misperception of what is happening, because they were much more likely to say it was at least a few times a week or at least a few times a month than what was actually reality from the teacher's own reporting. Now, we were curious, so we took it one step further and we asked students, how frequently are you using the internet to support homework? You ready? It's a total flip. In fact, 48% of high school students told us it was a daily occurrence for them. So here we have a real nice juxtaposition of where our teachers, in terms of their readiness to use these type of tools, if their attitudes are not at the level or their valuation is not at the level of thinking of this as extremely important, and then not feeling that it is important enough to assign on a regular basis. The students tell us in our focus group that learning for them today is a 24/7 enterprise. It does not start and stop with the school day. And the use of technology, particularly the use of the internet, is like oxygen. It breathes life into their learning process, particularly if they are following academic passions or the learning has a purpose that is contextually relevant to their lives. And so here we see this disconnect. So we asked teachers, so what do you need to feel more comfortable using technology within your daily practice, within your classroom instruction? And we broke them into two categories. So the top needs that teachers told us about was professional development, planning time, devices for every student to use, technology support. Those are the things that we hear all the time. And they were the ones that came up the most frequently. The ones that were identified by less than a quarter of the teachers were these type of things. I'm looking for information on classroom management strategies when there are devices and digital content that's used all the time. I'm looking for a curated or recommended set of resources that will make me more efficient, that are tied to my standards, tied to what I'm teaching, tied to where I am in my curriculum. I'm looking for access to tools that will help me organize all of this to make me more efficient. I'd like to build my capacity by learning about a rubric so that I can start evaluating the types of content or tools that are out there. And I'd like to have some coaching on how to create the type of high-impact lessons. Only a quarter of our teachers are identifying those type of needs. And so this is why we're talking about this chalkboard dilemma. If we only look at the fact that we no longer have the chalkboard in the classroom, we are missing this part of the story that says we are not yet getting to the systemic change, the real change in instructional practice that we all want, that we've all talked about for years, that has been the long promise of all of this technology. Now, of course, teachers want professional development and need professional development, and they need planning time, and they need technology support. But too many of our teachers are keeping it at that level and not going to that next level of thinking maybe a little bit more reflectively of what they really need to be able to implement this technology effectively. So the common mantra has been, if we give teachers exposure, we make them familiar, and then we give them access, that they will adopt these tools and use them successfully. And the Speak Up data provides lots of evidence to that. I gave you just a couple snippets here today. But what we are not seeing, except in a few pockets, and I call them campfires of innovation, and we do see them, is we're not seeing the level of adaptation, the level of innovation, the level of seamless integration of the technology so that for the teacher it also is like oxygen. It is breathing life into the learning in the same way that the students reflect on that. So what do we need to do? Is it a question of the tools? Is it a question of the training, the quality of the training, the types of training? Does it have to do with the classroom process and structure or format itself? What about levels of support? Levels of support both from a facilitation, a technology standpoint, as well as the cultural or humanistic support from a school principal or an instructional coach. What about risk-taking? Is there opportunities within the school culture for greater risk-taking and that willingness to change? What I believe we all want is really to not just have teachers check the box on different types of technology that they're using, but really to be able to develop a capacity for readiness to be able to use not only the tools that the industry is bringing to the table today, but those tools that will be there tomorrow, next year, the year after. So with that, what I want to do is turn to my experts that are here with me. I've got a couple choice questions for them about this chalkboard dilemma and to get their insight into the conversation as well. Are we ready?
I think so.
Okay. Interesting data, huh? So give me from your perspective, Jessie, I know you have the opportunity to talk with teachers and go into the classroom all the time, and of course Anne, as the chief leader within your school district, this is part and parcel of your everyday responsibilities as well. So do you see evidence of this, what we're calling this chalkboard dilemma, this disconnect between what is evident on the surface and what may or may not be happening underneath the surface? Either one.
Yes, I mean, we would definitely see evidence. I think something that we need to continue to remember is our teachers in the classroom are still teachers who were a part of that classroom. You showed 1963, in fact.
Right.
Pretty sure that was my first grade classroom.
Do you think so?
I think so. And so our teachers had 13 years of that type of learning environment, plus university is very similar to that. So that's 17 years of this is how I learned, I did well in school, and so it's a very difficult habit to break. So we do see that. We see pockets of greatness, as you referenced, and then we also see an electronic classroom where we still have rows. As hard as we have worked at this, we still have rows with students, and laptops are used, but are they used as a true learning tool? Not always. Not always, so it was very difficult. You know, it was interesting because I looked through our data from this current year to the previous year, and there are some areas that we improved and other areas that we did not improve. So then you have to be reflective and ask, you know, why is that happening? And some of that is actually a shift from the strategies that worked well for them last year that now they're changing to this year. Some of it is just the rapid pace of software changing, and they can't keep up. You know, some of our veteran teachers, we finally get them to use a PowerPoint, which I'm not saying that's a great strategy, but then all of a sudden it changes. They find links to websites, and now the next time they go to use it, that website is no longer active. And so that causes an element of frustration and kind of a setback for some of those teachers. But yes, it's happening.
Okay, thank you.
You know,
Jessie,
I tend
what
to
are you
see-
seeing?
I tend to see these things in chapters. And I think chapter 1 was, we said, we got to get all the devices into classrooms. And we saw one-on-one initiatives that didn't work so well in chapter 1. And then we said, okay, well, we have to be more intentional about content. Not only access to technology and devices, but content. And so we added things to automated grade books and things like that, and we added practice apps. And we said, okay, we'll take the same activities that we do on paper and pencil, and we'll digitize them. And we'll revolutionize learning. That was chapter 2. And that really didn't go that well. So now we're in chapter 3. And what makes me excited about chapter 3 are 3 things. One is that there is increasingly or approaching ubiquitous access to technology and broadband. Secondly, parents and other learning guardians understand that the world that their children live in is globalized and information driven, and it's just not going to be satisfactory for them to have an older approach. And so parents are demanding that schools do a better job of preparing kids, not to survive and not to thrive in the next century, but to drive it, to be architects of it. And the third thing that has me excited is that there's a new class of technologies that exist now that didn't even exist largely at scale, even say 5 or 6 years ago. And these are technologies that get to know the user through use. So how many of you all have a Netflix account or an Amazon account? The more you use it, the more it gets to know you. Now we have a class of technologies that have brought this capability into learning. So these technologies literally learn the learner as the learner learns. And so now in chapter 3, we have an opportunity to actually see what is happening at the micro level in learning. How are students thinking? How are they forming hypotheses? What are the micro objectives that they're trying to accomplish? So if they're failing in fractions, why are they failing in fractions? Is it because they don't know measurement? Is it because they don't understand proportionality? Like, what is it? We have nuanced information now from these intelligent technologies that gives us new insights and can redefine the role of technology in learning. So I would say that technology has been adapting through all these chapters, and what hasn't been adapting is the practice of education. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs at this conference that are aspiring to revolutionize the education system. I have a lot of gray hair because I tried to do that for a long time too. And now I focus a lot more on learning. How can we inspire new kinds of learning by reshaping the learning environment to use data intelligently to support the art of teaching and do it in partnership with learning guardians, starting with teachers in the classroom?
You know what's fascinating with both of the things that you said is that one of the other audiences that we poll every year is parents. And so it's fascinating to us because when we ask parents, and again, this is about 30,000 parents we polled this past fall, and ask them, what is your greatest concern about your child's future? The number one answer that comes up from parents, and we disaggregate this by community type, parent income, geographic area, all the different things, is I'm concerned my child's not learning the right skills to be successful in the future. So that should give every one of our school districts a pause to say, you know, what are parents thinking about are the right skills, and also what is their concern point? Now, the other data point that jumps into my mind as you were both talking was the other thing that parents tell us is that they are very frustrated by the variety of technology skill level amongst their teachers. And so my child may be in a second grade class and have a fabulous electronic teacher who's doing all kinds of fabulous things, even using some of the adaptive tools. But then when they get to third grade, they've got nothing. Or chemistry uses it, but social studies doesn't. So that variation then creates this unease that parents have. And you're absolutely right, Jessie. The demand from parents for better education opportunities, learning opportunities for their children is extremely high right now with parents, and we're picking that up. So when we think about the barriers to either using some of these new technologies in Chapter 3, as Jessie told us about, or moving some of your existing teachers that were in that first grade class in 63, what are those barriers? Is it, I mean, I put up a couple things that we're thinking about there, but where do you really think the rubber meets the road in terms of the challenges?
You know what, one challenge that I see is simply a mindset that this technology is a learning tool, and we have so many of our educators who still see technology as a workplace tool. And we need to train kids on how to use technology so they're successful in the workplace, when the reality is it is a powerful learning tool. And so for some of our folks, it's understanding and recognizing just how powerful that can be and the change that it can make in their classroom, and how our students can take their learning to different levels if they are using it as a learning tool. And so that is definitely one barrier that I think gets in the way for us. I think it's also understanding that we have teachers who continue to be challenged by our students knowing more than they do about the technology. And understanding they work alongside of our students and allow our students they know more, which is great. It's okay. Our teachers struggle because they want to be perfect in the classroom with their lesson, and they need to understand that failure is a new success. And they need to learn from that, that this is how we all are learning, is from those successes. So that, those are some of the things that get in the way. I also wonder if we are appropriately telling the story with our stakeholders. Are they truly understanding how that technology is making a difference in the classroom and with our students, and the potential of that when our community, because you're saying parents want that skill, that's not necessarily what we always hear from our parents, because they are still very fearful of the social media side of it. So are we really truly telling the story of how well this tool can be used in the classroom, and the difference that it can make for students, and how it can completely change their education? We ideally want our students to drive their own learning. This tool can certainly contribute to that, but sometimes our parents, we will hear from them as they say, well, you're making my child do all the work that you should be doing, kind of thing. And they don't quite understand the difference in education today, and those changes with that technology.
I think that point about communicating, messaging, articulating, that's right up Alan's alley in terms of how are we messaging these changes, whether it is Chapter 3, or I don't even think we did a great job, Jessie, of messaging out Chapter 1 or Chapter 2 along the way. But what do you see as the barriers, Jessie?
So I'd say there are three things. The first is failure. So educators have been hearing people like me bloviate for 20 years about how we're going to revolutionize learning, and we've overpromised and underdelivered. And there's a healthy skepticism that frankly is deserved. How many times have you heard education technology companies say they're going to revolutionize this or that? So I think failure. I think the second thing is habits. You're talking about habits. Right. We're human beings. We all have bad habits. How many of us say we're going to become vegan, or we have bad habits, and so do teachers, and so do learning communities. And it's hard to break habits. We have to intentionally cultivate better habits by helping people experience success early, giving them incentive to try to do things differently. And then the third thing I would say is fear. So in our case at DreamBox Learning, we are K-8 math solution. And a lot of people in grade school, a lot of learning guardians in grade school are specifically in grade school because they can be generalists. And yet we're STEM this, STEM that, we want the next Einstein, and you're responsible for cultivating that. And poor teacher Jane got into this 12 years ago because she was going to be a generalist. And we have not prioritized adult learning opportunities. And so we don't prioritize the whole system. So I think in Chapter 3, companies like DreamBox are going to forge different kinds of partnerships with education buyers. And we're going to share responsibility for outcomes for both learners and learning guardians. And I think skepticism will wane. I think new habits will take hold. And I think ultimately the fear will abate.
Julie?
Yes, sure.
I just want to add one thing. When you were talking about barriers, I think there's a fundamental tension when you think about supply side versus demand side. So it used to be, this is your school district, this is your school, this is your textbook, and then there's the demand side. Oh, we can get Khan Academy, we can get DreamBox, so all these things. And for these folks, this is a good example. So you have a local leader and you have someone DreamBox, where on one hand you can best stuff out there, but on the other hand, what's happening, so the feds push down on the ESCA reauthorization, so it's going to go down to the states, and the states will go down to the local level. And you're going to have local education, and like to do the variation off of Tip O'Neill, all politics is local, all education is very local. But at the same time, you have this competing tension of, I want DreamBox. And yet a local district and a local school has been saying, so this is not part of our agenda. So that's a tension. And history says that the demand side is going to win, but it's hard. And it's going to, and your data there showing how kids are viewing things separate from administrators, separate from teachers, that's the divide right there. That's the tension.
Can I comment on this?
Sure, of course.
So I think that you're right about that tension, and I think it's up to companies like DreamBox to figure out ways to de-risk a move for you to even contemplate DreamBox. And now, because we're in Chapter 3 and we have these technologies that have rich data, you don't have to martyr your learning community, because we can share with you the data in as little as 3 weeks that shows that it works with your kids and your learning guardians in your context, however challenged it is, in a reasonable amount of time at reasonable cost. So if we can de-risk that for you, you can start small. And we have a lot of districts at DreamBox, but many of them started with a single classroom with a math coach. And we shared the data, de-risked it, and the math coach went and talked to the principal and said, you know what? Jacob, Mary, and Johnny are doing amazing things. And this is why. And they said, we need to get it in the whole school. So a classroom begot a building begot multiple buildings, and multiple buildings begot a district. And we built on success because we mitigated the fear and we de-risked a move to something new.
And you call it de-risk, and I call it ease of use. Because our teachers,
Yes.
their time is
They have no time.
packed. They have no
Exactly.
time.
No time.
They need it to be easy.
Yes.
And that is one of the things that is one of our barriers too. It needs to be easy for them, and that support with
Yes.
coaches is critical.
And I think that's an emerging area of need. So I was talking to a superintendent, this is a couple of years ago. He said there's a phenomenon about drip. All you guys, Jessie, you and everybody come to me and say, I'm going to give you more data, I'm going to give you more data. It's like, what do you think, I have no data in my district? I have so much data, I don't know what to do with it. And he called it drip, data rich and information poor. Don't come to me and tell me that you're going to bring more data. That's not in service for me. So in Chapter 3, we're going to move past data for data's sake to actionable data that can deliver relevant insights about what's happening for an individual child, a cohort of children, or an entire learning community on demand. So what is that going to require? It's going to require investment in learning guardians. They need data coaches, frankly. We have district partners that have invested in data coaches so that the principals or teachers know what to do when they get tomes of data from systems now, and they know what to do with it. Not to receive it and to put it in a frame, but what to do with it to help Johnny and Sally learn.
And again, not to promote so much on Speak Up, but it's the context that you can put things in a contextual framework. So for your drip piece, like, there's too many notes. Not to do the Amadeus thing, but there's so much, and to be able to contextualize it, which the Speak Up survey does, so that they can sort through it.
That's right. Well, Jessie, you and I know that we've been talking about this data to information to an actionable knowledge story for a while. And in fact, I many years ago started taking out of my vocabulary the idea of data-based decision-making. You don't really want to make decisions based on data. You want to make decisions based on contextualized information that then leads you to action. And I think one of the things that has come from that whole conversation, and it's the reason that we asked very specific new questions this year on the Speak Up survey about teachers' use of data, was to understand that that is not only an increasingly important role of the teacher, but one that we have to all be paying more attention to, is how to support the teacher in that capacity. You know, I've been playing around with a phrase in my mind about thinking about teachers, going back to some of the stuff you said, Anne, about messaging these things appropriately, from like a learning scientist perspective, you know, being able to think about how to not just get up and do a stand and deliver lesson, but really to be able to think about the learning processes involved and what does it mean for each individual student. Now, what we know is in many districts that is more easily said than others, and that's quite often that type of cultural shift starts at the top. So Anne, what type of leadership practices do you think are necessary to be able to move to Jessie's chapter 3 successfully, and hopefully even on to chapter 4, whatever chapter 4 might be?
I think that something that plays a big role in our district is our board support for the whole child, and really moving away from state testing and placing our emphasis on state test scores. It is a concern for our teachers. It is very difficult to help them make that shift because they believe, you know, in Indiana, the test scores are tied to their evaluation. So if they don't have quality high test scores for their students, then their fear is losing their position. So it comes into that classroom risk of failure, and it's helping them understand that, again, that failure is a new success. Helping them understand that those test scores are not our focus. Our board members would sit here on this panel and tell you that is not what's important to them. We don't message it as a community. We don't really discuss those test scores because there are so many other avenues of education that are so much more important to our students and their life success than being able to take a test well. So that piece is probably one direction that we go to help that change along. But we try to provide considerable support to our teachers, and that's in the professional development, that's time, and it is making sure that they have the resources that they need. They don't have too many resources, because then we don't know what to do with them all, but making sure that they have that support. Professional development is huge. So we have online professional development as well as our coaches. We have instructional coaches, we have technology coaches. And one of the things that we've kind of tossed around a little bit is having innovation mentors. That means those teachers that are our stellar teachers, we pair them up with some of those more struggling so they have a more close relationship and help motivate them in that direction also.
For about 4 years, Project Tomorrow had a National Science Foundation grant, and I don't know if you know about this, but we were looking at what were the levers to help teachers become more ready to use digital content, and we did all sorts of interventions with different types of professional development. And the one that came out every day of the week, it was a 4-year study, NSF funded, was coaching. Whether it was an instructional coach or a mentor or a technology coach, that was before kind of the idea of a data coach, but the idea of that sort of personalized coaching approach trumped everything else.
When we first went to one-to-one 6 years ago, we did not we wanted to make sure it was sustainable, so we did not solicit any grants. We made sure internally that we could manage this so it would last. The only part that was supported in terms of grant was for coaches, technology coaches. We thought, 2 years and we'll back out and everything will be good. So 6 years later, it's in our general fund, and we wouldn't do without it now. Our staff, absolutely. They need that support. And they do some of the legwork. They will be the ones who would work with you, Jessie, to vet that software and see how it can be used and save our teachers from doing that. And it's just been very important to us and successful.
Thank you, Anne. So Jessie, from the corporate community, what can the corporate community do, either from DreamBox or the bigger picture of all the different vendors that are out there to support this migration or this journey for teachers?
So I think this is about chapter 4. I think we have to get to a place where people like Anne do not have to guess about what works, in what condition, and why. And we have to understand that people in her learning community that are making purchasing decisions don't have time, and in some cases don't have the expertise to figure out what really works and why. And so we have to figure out a way to shine a light not only on what's working, but why it's working, so that conditions for replication of success can be achieved. So that's one thing. The second thing in Chapter 4 that I hope is going to happen is that we've all been chasing this greyhound of job-embedded teacher learning for like how long? Job-embedded, real-time, relevant teacher learning. Like, right? Forever.
Forever.
Those nimble technologies that we have, why can't we apply that to adult learning? So at DreamBox, we just did a press release today. So if a teacher's in a classroom and there are 20 kids, and there are 2 kids that are just really advanced, and DreamBox can tell that teacher that those 2 kids that are really advanced are going to be dealing with higher level math, I don't know, parabolas, in their next lesson assignment in DreamBox. And that teacher says, when's the last time I taught parabolas? I'm not ready for that. That's not part of the plan. But what if DreamBox said, Jessie and Johnny are going to be working on parabolas. Would you like to know more about what they're going to get in DreamBox? And oh, by the way, would you like to get some support, some ideas for teaching parabolas? What teacher isn't going to press that button? And it's relevant so that when Jessie asks a question about it, the teacher isn't going to be on her heels and defensive and fearful. She's going to be on her toes, poised to pounce, and excited. So Chapter 4 is going to be characterized, in my mind, by the integration of learning technologies that support student agency. At the same time, it supports learning guardian agency simultaneously. So we know what we need to do, and the learning guardian can modify her instructional practice on the fly based on what will be relevant to the kids in front of her, to the kids who will be in front of her, or to the kids that she is asked to support. And I think that's not crazy now.
No.
We have the technologies, we just need the will. We have the technologies, we have a fecund investment environment as evidenced by this conference. We need to listen to teachers and ask them what they need and deliver what they need, more of what they need and less of what they don't. So Chapter 4 is going to be characterized by intentional partnership between companies like DreamBox and learning guardians like it.
And it gets right back to Anne's point about making it easy
Yeah.
for the teacher to use it. So none of this diminishes the role of the teacher in any way at all. I mean, I really look at it as elevating the profession.
Absolutely.
You know, one of the other things that Project Tomorrow is very involved with is recruiting the next great generation of teachers. We do a lot of work in California in introducing teaching to high school students as a potential career. Sometimes that's a steep road to go based on the types of experiences that students have had. But this idea of elevating the professionalism of the profession and giving teachers the tools that they need to be successful is part of that conversation with recruiting the next great generation of teachers.
That's very important. There are some urban centers that have a 200, 300 teacher shortage every year.
That's right.
I mean, this is not aspirational. We have got to fix this thing because we have systems that are going to collapse under their own weight if we don't figure out a way how to delight teachers so that they're motivated to stay and continue to learn in their role as learning guardians.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so very much to Alan for kicking it off and Jessie and Anne for providing their always timely and right there on the money type comments. So thank you so very much. Please join my congratulating this audience. So Project Tomorrow had a couple releases. Alan mentioned one. We released a press release yesterday announcing a new relationship between the USC, University of Southern California's Rossier School of Education and Project Tomorrow to do further research work with us and some really deep partnerships. And we're just at the very beginning baby stages of this, but really interesting work that we're going to be doing with them. In addition to that, Project Tomorrow put out another release today where we released our top 10 things that everyone should know about today's students and digital learning. And so you're going to want to grab onto that because that's a not only great cocktail party conversation, I can't believe the kids said this, but also a way to really think about what this environment is all about. You know, I mentioned earlier on that for the students, learning is a 24/7 enterprise. There is a lot that we can learn from the way students are learning using these technologies right now, and it goes right back to what Ann and Jessie were talking about, both in terms of the easy to use and also the opportunity to have that sort of job embedded, purposeful use of the technology. The students tell us that all the time, and they would love to see better use of the technology by their teachers. Please do not be put off, though, that because of the students thinking about technology as a 24/7 enterprise, they don't value their teachers. In fact, every year, a majority of our students, high school students as well as middle school and elementary students, tell us how important their teachers are to their learning. So they also are invested in improving the quality of the teaching workforce. So you can find some more of this data that we released today on our website at tomorrow.org. In addition to that, I'm doing another short session on Wednesday where I'll go through 7 other trends that we're talking about. So with that, folks, any final thoughts from the panel? I'm counting down the minutes here, 3 minutes. Any final thoughts that you have about this topic of teacher readiness?
You know, I really appreciate the information the Speak Up survey gives us. It's very difficult for us to collect data on our progress and how we are doing that perspective of students and parents. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just would say that we come to these conferences to try to get re-inspired, and it's so easy to feel like there's no way we're going to win this fight. And I just I haven't been more optimistic in full view of all the challenges about the future of learning that I am right now. And it's not just because of the technology, but it's because of the intentionality that's happening in innovative districts with innovative leaders like Ann, and with the new possibilities that students are forcing on us. The bottom line is that kids are waiting for Godot, for we adults to pull ourselves together. Learning is happening every day in their lives, and we are thwarting it. We need to figure out a way to facilitate it and liberate it from their perspective.
Great.
And just on that also, just the quality of, you look around the folks here. So you've been coming to this every year as I have over the last 10 years, wow, right? In terms of the quality and the scalability and the folks that are putting into it. But I would go back to, again, we have great stuff. So DreamBox, it works. And there's stuff, whether it's history, whether it's math, whether it's reading, we know how to teach it. It's a communications, and that is a solvable piece. We can't make sure that every kid has a great teacher. That's hard. We're trying. Schools of ed, by the way, have to do so much better. They have been a broken piece of the equation. And we can't guarantee that every kid's going to have one parent or 2 parents, but we can guarantee that they're engaged and that we can provide the efficacy and research to make sure they get the tools and cut through the clutter.
Good. Thank you so much, folks. This was great. Thank you for joining us.
Good to see you. Good family.